So the camera matching was really cool. There's actually another new feature in 902 called the CameraPlane. And what the CameraPlane will do, it'll actually take your camera, and if we just come here to drawing and make sure, under visibility, make sure our camera's on, it will actually take your camera and look at this projection. So that dotted line, that area coming out, and it will match a plane to it. Well, what good is that? Well, if I draw a plane out here like this and give it a relative idea of about video size, something like that, and let's make sure we center it. Let's go here to polygon mode and center it out. Okay, so it's in front of there, but I want to lock it to this. I want to lock it to the camera. So what I'm going to do is come over here to setup, and let's just take a look at the camera view. I'm going to press Control and click and drag on that little tick mark to duplicate this view, and we'll take one view as a perspective. Okay, so what this can do is take this plane and map it into that projection. It'll match that. And that's really great if you've got layered images and you want to do kind of a cool motion graphics type thing in 3D. You want to get sort of that kind of After Effects look like a cartoon of different layers. Really easy to do. Or you just want to overlay something, but keep it locked to the camera and have video or animation in the background. So what I'm going to do, just to show you the rough way to do this, is take the camera and drop it here into Schematic. Then we're going to go to Add, and we're going to go down to, I have one here, but I'm going to show you where it is. It's under Constraints, Camera Plane. We'll drop that in, and we're going to take the camera and drop it into Camera. Easy enough. But then I want to take this mesh, because that's what I want to lock to the camera plane. All right, and you're typically not going to do it like this. I'm just showing you how the bones are. We're going to take the position, rotation, and scale for that mesh, drop it in Schematic, and plug each one of these in. And so what you're seeing now is that plane mapped to the camera. Now I can go to the camera, and let's go down here to, take that back. We're going to take the resolution for the camera, and we're going to say 1920 by 1080. And you'll see that even when I change that resolution, that plane adjusts. And you'll see that it actually fits within that projection, which is great. Okay, so what's the point of it? What can we do with it? Well, there's a depth value for this, and we can have multiple values, and when that depth moves, it will size up to actually fit that projection of the camera. All right, so let's close all this. I wanted to show you just kind of how that schematic looked with it. But now that you've seen that, there's a little bit easier way to do this. Select the camera, and back where we were under the background image when we did the camera matching, let's add image plane. And that automatically does everything we just did. It matches it, it builds that plane, locks it to the camera. That's great. It also shows us here our depth, and with our depth, we can actually scale that closer to the camera or farther away. All right, so this one's fine at 1. Let's select the camera, and I'm going to add another one. You can add as many as you like, and I'll pull that depth back just a little bit. Well, now we can actually map an image on here, and I've got a layered image ready to go for you. So I need to get to my clips browser, and it's not here by default. So what I want to do is click this little drop down up here, more tabs, and what we want to do is we want a new tab, and we want to come down to data lists and clips. This adds our clip browser, like that. We're going to add a clip, and we're going to say load layered image, not just a regular image, but a layered image. And the reason is because I've got a Photoshop image in your downloads that is called CameraPlane image. It has 2 layers in it. It's just very simple. And you'll see that there is a cloud and a grass. So I'm going to take the cloud, and I'm going to drag it and drop it right on top of that background, or that back plane. And I'm going to take the grass, and I'm going to drop it on top of the front one. Give it a second here. Do it one more time. Sometimes I go too fast for it. There we go. Now, typically I can't see anything here. I can put on my transparency and everything else for the view, which is fine. But I want to be able to make sure I see it in my render, because that's what's going to be my final output. And the reason I can't is because if I look in my shader tree, here are the 2 image masks that were created when those planes were built in. So another reason that little button is great, because it matches it, it locks it, and creates a material group for you. But it's just set to diffuse color. I want to make sure my transparency is visible. So I'm going to right click on this and choose RGBA. Okay. The RGBA is down here under special effects, like that. Ta-da! And what that does is it makes that image transparent where the transparency is within the image. If you take a look, you'll see that here's the two layer. There's a flattened version just to show you, but in my layered Photoshop file, that layer is transparent, this layer is solid. So I wanted to make sure that the RGB value was there. All right, so great. We've got two planes in here. What can we do with these? Well, what's kind of cool is that you can't really move it. It's locked. Okay, so that's a nice safety. You can go back in and move it for the depth and everything else, but you can also go ahead and now start animating. So for example, we're going to come over here to Layout, and I'm going to come down and go to, let's go back all the way up actually, Vehicles, Aircraft, Add a Plane, okay? And we've got this nice plane here. I'm going to scale it down just a little bit, and we're going to scale it down a lot actually. Now I'd probably want this cloud image to be farther back. So in order now to change the depth after the fact, what we'll do is we'll come down here and we'll select the image plane 1, image plane 2, and the camera, and we're going to drag that into our schematic. Let's open that up just so we can see what's going on here. All right, so it doesn't look like much is happening, but don't be fooled. Okay, so here's the one. When you see these little triangles here, okay, you can double click those. And what you'll see is actually more connections. So we're going to double click this, and now you're going to see the whole setup. So now here's our camera planes, and we go over here to channels. We select this camera plane. We'll be able to actually change the depth a little bit more, making it very easy to work with. Camera plane, this one. So it's at 125. Let's move it to about 4, like that. So now notice in the right side here, our plane is visible, even though, or I should say our jet is visible, but our clouds have remained visible in the camera, but moved back. Let's move it up to 8. Again, behind the camera, the jet's totally visible, but if you look in the camera view here, you'll see that they haven't changed in scale at all. So it's really, really cool because you're able to do all kinds of things, whether it's cartoons, whether it's a mixture of images, whether if it's things, like a jet flying by and mixed between two images. Even if it's just something very simple buildings, things like that you might want to animate. Okay. All right. Now, lighting is of course an issue, and in this case, I've got my default light, and I always like to try and make these things as complete as possible. So, what we're going to do is take this directional light. We're going to turn that off. Go here to Properties, and let's go over here to Render. Click on that guy. There's our render. And we're going to go on a render preset. We're going to come up to Environments. We're going to choose Outdoor. And we can choose one of our HDR environments that comes with Moto. And it's a pretty bright sunny day, so let's choose this grass field. Let's double click that. And now we're going to get a similar lighting setup. Not much, but similar. Part of the problem with this is that our image maps are not quite picking up the light. And for that, we can go into the sky image, and we can come in here to the low value and the high value, but also we can change the gamma to about 0.5. That'll richen it up a bit. But then we can increase the high value, maybe to about 125, like that. And the low value is going to give it, if you go negative 80, or I should say negative 20, it's going to richen that up a little bit. So there's things you can do with this low value and high value, as well as the gamma, to kind of punch those images in the background. All right, so from this point, you can go ahead and just play around and animate this animate this jet flying through. And, think about the possibilities. If you have, obviously, a set of layered images, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different layers, you can be animating all kinds of things. Right here we just did a very simple composite of the two. But hopefully it'll give you an understanding of how the camera plane works and the possibilities.